Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Courtney Lowe and I'm an organizational psychologist consultant. Today I'm here to address a crucial issue that needs to promptly be evaluated and stopped: bias and discrimination in our workplace. It's important to recognize that fostering a diverse and inclusive environment not only improves employee satisfaction and well-being, but also enhances the quality of care we provide to our patients. Let's explore some strategies to address these challenges. In order to overcome biases and discrimination, we must first take steps to understand what they are and how they are impacting our organization. Bias is a tendency to prefer certain individuals or groups over others based on preconceived notions of certain characteristics. This can be conscious or unconscious process and can have direct or indirect consequences. Discrimination, however, is the unfair treatment of individuals or groups based on characteristics such as gender, race, and ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, disability, age, and weight. In past decades, overt or outwardly obvious discrimination had been declining due to the emergence of new laws making it illegal in various ways. This led to a shift in subtle discrimination, which is a lot more ambiguous and difficult to detect, though no less harmful. In recent years, however, the push for efforts to increase diversity and inclusion have been met with backlash, resulting in a re-emergence of overt discrimination. This can look different for different individuals and groups. Women are still experiencing gender discrimination at work in many forms, including a pay gap, being treated as less competent than men, and having to fight stereotypes in a male-dominated work climate. Sexual harassment and assault have also been growing recently, though these affect both men and women, and more research is needed on this topic regarding work environments. Racial and ethnic minorities still face both overt and subtle discrimination, and while this can differ based on different stereotypes for different minority groups, this can look like lower pay and performance ratings, limited access to networking opportunities, and unequal testing. Some minorities, including Hispanics and Native Americans, are even still not receiving as much research attention as other groups. Despite growing acceptance, LGBTQ+ individuals still experience workplace discrimination, and they don't have the same protections provided to other minority groups by federal law. Growing religious diversity in America has fostered an increase in religious discrimination in the workplace, especially against Muslims. This could include unequal treatment, failure to make the appropriate accommodations, retaliation, and subtle discrimination. Due to a widespread lack of awareness and concerns for liabilities, individuals with disabilities face discrimination in the workplace by being treated as less competent and experiencing a pay gap if they're employed at all. This also includes distinction that those with invisible disabilities report more negative experiences than those with physical disabilities. Older employees and applicants face stereotypes of being resistant to change and less productive, despite compromising a large and growing percentage of the workforce, and some research suggesting certain advantages over younger workers. Heavier individuals are seen as less intelligent or hardworking and receive less sympathy due to the belief that their weight is a controllable factor and therefore a problem of willpower. Why should we care? Because these experiences of discrimination can take a toll on one's emotional well-being, which can influence the affective components of their attitudes. An attitude is defined as an evaluative opinion that guides behavior regarding a specific target. There are many job attitudes, including job satisfaction, organizational commitment, job involvement, employee engagement, and perceived organizational support. These attitudes have influence over individual and organizational outcomes. Each attitude has been related to motivation, job performance, health outcomes, and withdrawal behaviors such as lateness and intent to leave, with perceived organizational support relating most strongly to withdrawal behaviors. The snowball effect of consequences from discrimination experiences can have devastating impacts on both individual and organizational outcomes if not intercepted and stopped. In cases of more ambiguous unconscious biases, there are still adverse effects to the individual and organization involved. According to Paul Spector, biases, whether conscious or unconscious, can hinder both the employer and employee when they get in the way of recruitment efforts. Bias can cause hiring managers to hire the wrong people, throw away great applicants, and both directly and indirectly reduce diversity. Now let's talk about how we can address the lack of diversity and inclusion in our organization. Contrary to some beliefs, unconscious bias can be addressed and accounted for. Ways for overcoming unconscious bias include relying on evidence-based decision-making methods, such as conducting a job analysis and using a list of KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities, as a guide to match candidates to a job rather than relying solely on a gut feeling. Another way is to ensure diversity by including multiple people of different backgrounds and points of view in the decision-making process. It is increasingly important to be aware of these biases and how they can affect multiple aspects of organizational operations so we can work to overcome them. Dobbin and Kalev expressed concerns over the fact that current popular organizational efforts to reduce discrimination and increase diversity in the workplace are often causing more harm than good. It is mentioned that the methods currently in use are antiquated and focus on enforcing mandatory training with intimidating legal language that just causes more animosity and pushback as managers fight to retain their autonomy. These efforts include diversity training that employs negative and threatening language, the unfair and selective use of hiring tests, skewed performance ratings, and poorly executed grievance procedures that often result in retaliation. Now that you've been told what not to do, here are some things that you definitely should do to promote better attitudes toward diversity and get results in the way of actual data increases. Engagement, contact, and social accountability. These lead into several methods that organizations can use to motivate change among their employees, including college recruitment programs and mentoring to provide management with an opportunity to get engaged, self-managed teams and cross-training to increase contact between different people, and diversity task forces and diversity managers to provide social accountability that will result in positive changes. The bottom line is that forcing and punishing do not work as effective motivators, but creating environments for engagement, contact, and social accountability does work and works well. The previously mentioned diversity trainings can be beneficial if they're developed in an evidence-based manner and implemented in a way that provides positive and encouraging language rather than harsh demands for compliance. We, as an organization, are also responsible for clearly communicating an intolerance for all forms of discrimination, as well as promoting inclusivity in our policies and procedures. This could look like flexible work arrangements, family leave policies, and religious accommodations. I would also suggest having a way of anonymously reporting any incidents of bias or discrimination to avoid fear of retaliation. Lastly, I want to touch on the communication issues we seem to be having. In a podcast titled The Science of Productive Conflict, host Adam Grant discusses ways in which conflict can be productive rather than destructive, and he provides a framework for how to accomplish this. He explains how his experience with conflict mediation training has helped him to better address the underlying issues that often run a lot deeper than the initial evaluation of a conflict might suggest. The ladder of inference is described as a set of cognitive processes in which we first make observations that we turn into assumptions and then into conclusions that can cause a tangled mess of feelings. It is the reworking of this construct in reverse that is the first step in facilitating productive conflict. One must be willing to critically analyze their own ladder and to see the other party's ladder with compassion and understanding. The distinction between relationship conflict and task conflict is identified as important because relationship conflict pits one party against another based on personality or values, which is unnecessary and can be harmful. Task conflict, however, is when two parties work together to overcome a problem, because they can recognize that their conflict is between them and the task, not each other. This mindset promotes teamwork behaviors and can be another step in getting closer to our diversity and inclusion goals. Grant also says that when someone disappoints you, it's not because of their actions, but of a clash between their actions and your expectations. Understanding their personality can help you rethink your assumptions and conclusions and adjust your expectations. When one is able to identify the root problem and understand that the other person is not the enemy, then healthy conflict can arise from effective communication that can be a catalyst for great change. These communication strategies can help us as an organization and as individuals. Stigmatized individuals and allies alike can use these methods to identify and confront discrimination within the workplace and without. In conclusion, creating an inclusive workplace requires collective effort and commitment. By embracing diversity, we can enhance teamwork, creativity, and overall performance. We have to work together to make our organization a beacon of inclusivity and equality. Thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to supporting you throughout this transformative journey.